rainbow of colors glittered across Blue's face as he sat in front of his ship's console. He was alone, meandering through the inky black membranes of space. Blue skirted past a swirling galaxy on his left, narrowly avoiding the constellation's possession. To his right was a black hole that sucked greedily at the hull of his ship, missing him by just a hair. Blue soared past gas giants, careful not to scorch the tail of his ship on the dense clouds that fueled creation. No one had taught him how to navigate the stars, but Blue felt that it was his purpose to do so. The great black desert dwarfed his ship, coaxing him in with its secrets of infinity. For the life of him, Blue could not remember where he'd come from or where he was going. Some sticky fog clung to his thoughts and movements. He looked around at the ship, which he assumed had carried him many miles. It was small, just enough room to share with a co-pilot and perhaps a small, well-behaved dog. There was only Blue inside, however, being the lonely pilot that he was. He looked out of the window in front of him and into the void, feeling an uneasiness that he'd come to know well lately. As the universe unfolded before him, Blue's ship was suddenly rocked by a fierce turbulence. He clutched at the wheel, unable to steer as he was violently pulled through space. Some secret siren had spied Blue drifting through the darkness and was now luring him to the surface of some unknown planet. The dreary dot, cloudy and frail, floated like a ghost against the vast black sea. Stars whizzed by as the planet and its watcher lulled Blue into their dream, ushering in a new reality that seeped into his bones. Book 1, Witch's Fingers. There was a crash, a disturbance in the peace which had afforded this world's people the comfort of dreaming. Blue's ship opened to the warm and stagnant air of the place. He blinked, raising a hand in front of his face and squinting before stepping cautiously down the ship's ramp. Blue could barely see past his fingers as the dust and fog swirled relentlessly. He swallowed deep breaths behind the glass dome of his helmet. Alien lights and shadows spiraled around Blue, reflecting over the face of his helmet like witches' fingers. He slipped when he reached the end of the platform, toppling into the dust and sending it flying everywhere. A new gravity weighed on Blue, forcing him into the here and now of this tragic place. He gasped as the air seeped through the freshly cracked glass of his helmet, his body retching and thudding against the ground. As the air filled his lungs, Blue's consciousness steadily drifted away. A frog croaked beside Blue's ear, disturbing him from his dreams. He rolled over and examined the slimy creature's beady eyes, then he groaned. Spaceman, thought Blue. He'd been dreaming of galaxies again. Blue looked out at the scene before him. A small mouse looked on greedily from across the floor, desperate for the crusty roll of bread that Blue clutched to his chest. He'd nearly dropped his prize as he'd slept. He tasted blood as he lay in the dirt, remembering the trouble he'd gone through last night to get his bread roll. He and the neighborhood ruffians had thrown blows, fighting over the remnants of some well-to-do man's dinner. Blue had fled into the night with the roll when he saw the flash of a pocket knife amidst the flurry of fists and elbows. Thorns coiled near his ankles as he lay against the crumbling brick of an abandoned farmhouse just outside of town. That is, if you could call it a town. Blue looked up, shielding his eyes from the rapidly vanishing sunlight that trickled through the busted roof. Rain was coming. He wondered if anyone had seen him flee to the farmhouse in the night. He could make out a sign just across the street that said Lemsburg, and he groaned, thinking of walking back there and facing the hungry and violent youth. Blue sat up, feeling his back crack. He slowly stood, rubbing his shoulder where one of the men had landed a heavy blow. I have to get back to my things, he thought, remembering the small rucksack he'd left at the inn. Probably all stolen anyway, he sighed. He'd only been passing through the small town, one stop on his journey into the unknown. Blue had been a wanderer for as long as he could remember. No memory of a home or of loved ones drove him. He simply drifted here or there, looking for answers where he could find them. Suddenly, Blue felt something small and hard hit the back of his head. A moment later, a pebble bounced off the brick wall just beside him. He swirled around to see a group of men and women with bodies twisted from malnourishment. They moved, softly groaning with sticks and rocks in their hands. They were staring at Blue and his stale bread. "Thought you'd keep it all to yourself," yelled one of the men before spitting violently at the ground. He wiped his crusty lips and flashed an even crustier smile that chilled Blue through and through. "Time to share," the man demanded, slapping the club he was holding against the wall. Blue backed slowly away, eyeing a crack in the wall that led outside towards the road. The moaning mass before him grew louder as they inched closer, their arms and hands reaching. They shifted towards Blue as he stumbled backwards against the wall. He clamored for the crack behind him, but the hands were already grabbing at his shirt and pants. Suddenly, a piercing scream filled the air. One small girl from the mold broke free. She trudged towards Blue, who was standing with the wall at his back. The mass stopped and stared as the girl pulled a crumbled hydrangea from her paper-thin skirt pocket. She held it up to Blue, her trembling hand dirty, her eyes watered. He took the dirty flower as the small girl stumbled away back into the crowd. Like a receding wave, they backed away, mumbling and shuffling into the dark and dingy corners from whence they came. The girl also disappeared into the shadows of the ruins, and Blue quickly scrambled out through the crack in the wall. He ran to the road, looking back over his shoulder, but the hungry people had disappeared into the old building and beyond. Blue looked to his right at the sign that pointed towards Lemsburg, then to his left, out over the hill and across the river to the sea. There was a wailing that grew steadily louder, creeping its way over the hill and through the trees. Little fires raged on the horizon, and thunder shook the skies. A man in the distance below ran from a mob that was chanting and hurling bottles. A woman's body lay eerily motionless in the gutter, where a dog licked her feet. A group of small children skipped along, carrying machetes and a lasso of tied-together sun-bleached skulls. Standing in the dwindling heat of the morning sun, Blue felt a drop of rain on his shoulder, then another and another, until suddenly the sky opened up, drenching everything around.